Aloha, and welcome to today's Kupuna. I'm Percy E. Howard, your host. As we enter our senior years, some say life is just beginning. Our journey leads us to new beginnings, a new purpose, and a new role as elders. The exciting part about this stage of the journey is knowing the vast and rich accumulation of experience and wisdom we all have to offer. On our show today, we will look into how important it is to preserve our culture, stories, and pass on the wisdom to our families and the communities. With me today is Ms. Jeanette Sargent Hamill, a social gerontologist and independent filmmaker. Welcome to the show, Jeanette.
Thank you, Percy.
Thank you for coming. Now, before we begin each show, we begin with a short message for our Kupuna. So go ahead and grab a paper and pencil, as you may want to take down some notes, or at least a few phone numbers. We'll be right back after this message for our Kupuna.
Hi, I'm Gene Kaneshiro from the Department of Education, Safety and Security Section. Want to stay active and young? Want to help our school students cross the street safely? Want to contribute to making our streets safe for your fellow Kupunas as they bring their grandchildren to school? The Honolulu Police Department and the Department of Education is looking for Kupunas like you to be a crossing guard. What is an adult crossing guard? A crossing guard is a person trained by the Honolulu Police Department to assist our school students cross the street safely before and after school. Adult crossing guards play an important role in the lives of our children who walk or bicycle to and from schools in your neighborhood. School crossing guards help children safely cross the street at key locations. They remind drivers of the presence of pedestrians. They make parents feel comfortable about their children walking or bicycling to school. They help remind children to be responsible for their own safety. They are role models helping children develop their skills necessary to cross streets safely at all times. If you are interested in working at a school near you, contact the school you are interested in or contact me at 586-3457. That's 586-3457. I'm Gene Kaneshiro of the Department of Education, Safety and Security Section, and I'm asking for your support. Aloha.
Welcome back. My guest today is Ms. Jeanette Sargent Hamill, a social gerontologist. Welcome to the show again, Jeanette.
Thank you, Percy.
Now, for our audience who don't know who you are, your background, how you got involved in gerontology?
Well, in 1990, I was 40 years old, and I decided I wanted to change my career.
Really?
And I went back to university, and I re-educated, and about halfway through, I started thinking about what could I do now that would be an advantage to me in the future instead of a disadvantage, because I was older already.
Right.
So I'm a writer. I love to write, and I thought about writing, and I worked on the school paper for a while, and here I had all these 22-year-olds staying up until 1 o'clock in the morning putting a front page together, and I was asleep on the couch. And I went, well, this isn't going to work. And I actually saw a special on Good Morning America in probably 1991, and it was the two fellows who started Elder Hostel.
Oh, okay.
Which is an amazing worldwide organization of continued learning.
Right.
And I thought, now I could do that. Healthy aging, continued lifelong learning. I could do that. So I started thinking about going into the field of aging and gerontology, yeah.
And you put the two words together, social gerontologist. That's the first time I've heard of that, but anyway, after you explain it to me, I like it now. So explain to our viewers what social gerontologist is.
Well, it's a general study of aging. There are some specific curriculums that, you can be a gerontologist, you can be a physician and be a specialty in gerontology.
Okay.
But I'm not that, and a lot of people thought that I was a medical gerontologist, and I'm not. I'm really a social gerontologist, and I had to devise my own major. That was not an option when I went back to university.
And you went to the university here?
I did.
Great.
UH.
And in Santa Cruz, where you were living for a while, right?
That's right.
Now, we're talking about today documenting people's lives, and I really liked that. When I first saw you on another show, I thought, that's something I'd like to do for my parents. So today we're really talking about documenting people's lives and their histories, and it's one way to really pass on this to your family. Yeah? Can you expound more on that?
Well, what happened for me was, while in the process of studying aging and the process of aging, of course I started looking at my own parents. And at the time I graduated, my dad was 88.
Wow.
I'm the youngest of a family of 4. My parents were quite a bit older. And I thought, you know, if I don't get my dad's stories down on tape, they're going to be lost. They'll be lost. And they're so important and they're so amazing. So I just bought an inexpensive video camera, went to their house, I sent him some questions, said, please look at these, set the camera up on the TV over my shoulder, kind of framed the shot a little bit, and did an interview.
And that was the first time you ever did that?
Yes, and I just knew that if I didn't do it, I could lose the opportunity, the window of opportunity, and you can't wait for this stuff, because you never know. Life is very precarious, you know.
Well, he was, you said 88 at the time?
It was his 88th birthday, yeah.
So he's probably got a wealth of stories,
Oh.
memories from, what, the Depression era?
He was born in 1908. He was
Wow.
born 100 years ago. Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, my father, too. My father made me realize just how important the time's changing. We were walking through an airport once, and my dad just stopped, and he looked around, and he goes, you know, my dad would never have believed that air travel would ever get to this point.
Really?
Never would have believed it. My grandfather was born in, what, 1880.
Wow. Now, I know we have some clips of your first video with your father. So why don't you kind of set us up what we're going to see?
Okay. So I set the camera behind me, over my shoulder, and we just talked story for probably an hour, hour and a half, and I've just taken a little part of this clip, and just to show you one of the stories that, of course, we heard all of our lives. And I just prompted him every now and then, and he'd kind of go off on a roll, and I'd film for a while, and then I'd kind of bring him back in and get back to the questions. But this is just one of the stories about he had 2 Clydesdale horses up in Canada when he was growing up.
Wow.
And this is a story about an experience that he had with these horses and with his father.
And so he grew up in Canada, so he must have had all kinds of stories about growing up and, of course, raising a family.
Well, yes.
I met your mother.
Yes, and my dad was the oldest of 8 children, and they had some hard times in probably about 1920, 1918. And my dad ended up supporting his family.
Wow.
Yeah, and my grandfather worked on the railroad up in Canada, and just the stories are amazing. They're so alive and so valuable. And this, of course, for me, one of the really important things, my dad passed away in 2000 at the age of 91, and my great-nephew was 4 at the time. And he is 12 now. And he didn't really know his great-grandfather.
Sure.
And now he can sit and watch this amazing video and see how my dad moved and hear his voice, and it's really valuable.
Yeah, and with today's technology as well, I know that was your first one, basically just putting a camera up on a countertop, but now I know that's one thing that you do. You're an independent filmmaker, and you do this for a living, actually, now.
Well, yes, after working in the field of gerontology for the last 15, 16 years now, I finally have gone back to that original thought of, you know, it's really, really vital that we capture our elders' histories. We have the technology, like you said, available to do that now, which we didn't We couldn't do this 20, 30 years ago.
Right.
It used to be that only wealthy people or people who were really famous had biographies or did autobiographies or had a movie made about them. We have the ability to do that today. With the computer you have at home, with the video camera you already have, we've got it all. All you need to do is have the idea.
So it's probably pretty valuable not only from your great-nephew, but yourself and your other siblings as well.
Oh, my sister and I, one of my sisters and I, every year on my dad's birthday, we call each other and we queue up our DVDs and we sit and watch it together.
Really?
Every year. And we talk about our dad and what a wonderful, wonderful man he was, what a great father he was. And I can't tell you how amazing it is to just see him moving and talking. And I wish I had this of my great-grandparents and my grandparents. Both of my grandfathers were gone by the time I was born. I didn't know them at all. And I'd give anything to be able to hear their voice and hear what the world was like for them when they were young men.
The amount of history that we've lost in such this time. Well, because of you and because of your story that I saw, and after talking to you, that is one of the things I'm going to do for my parents is, and I've talked to them about it, about doing a life documentary. My father grew up in Hilo, and my mother grew up in Maui, so we're going to combine the two stories and how raising 6 kids, traveling the world in our family. So thank you very much.
It's my pleasure.
Now let's take a break from our discussion, Jeanette, and look at one of her samples of elder history documentations.
Where were you born?
Sturgis, South Dakota.
And did you stay there very long?
No, I was only 2 years old when we moved up to Campsite, Saskatchewan, and we went to school. I went to school there, and my family was having it kind of tough, so I got through high school, and that's as far as I went. Getting back to those horses. When we went, those 6 months that we were down in South Dakota, Dad let a fellow by the name of Bill Hurd have those horses for their keep. Those were Clyde horses, and they were big, George and Kate. So I was glad that Hurd was going to have them because he had a team of horses too. He did the same thing with his team around town that I was doing. So I was kind of glad that he would have them. Anyway, when we came back, the first thing I wanted to see was those horses. So Dad took me right out there to Bill Hurd's barn, and I'll tell you, that scene that I saw there, I'll never forget to my dying day. Those horses stood there in a stall, standing in manure that deep, manure hanging on the sides. I don't know what it was in their tails. Not a straw on the floor, not a spear of hay in the manger, and along the manger there they always have a little pole about so big around right across the front of the manger, and then your manger's over there and it's solid back there too, and that's where they put the hay. And then there's the oat boxes on the side. Those oat boxes was half eaten.
Oh boy.
And big chunks. Gosh. Big chunks taken out of this little rod that goes across here.
You were so hungry.
Boy, I tell you, I never saw Dad. I only seen him real, well, I would say mad once in my life, and that was the day. But the sad part of all this was, I started to bawl. And I went up there to pet him. I went up in front of Kate first. And you know what? Her foot came up.
Oh.
Jeanette, I love the video on your dad.
Thank you. He's quite a storyteller, I'll tell you.
Wow, we'd love to hear some more. Now, if I wanted to do it, or the audience watching the show, or our viewership wants to do this documentary, they can do it on their own. But with today's technology, there's a lot more that they could do in terms of editing it and everything.
Yes. In fact, one of the reasons, we're going to see another video at the end, but this is what you can do yourself. This is just a video camera set up in a room. You can take this, you can put it into your computer, and you can burn a DVD yourself. You can do this with video. you can just get an audio tape and just tape stories if somebody doesn't want to be
Like
on
a
camera.
journal.
Yes, you can have an elder sit and write their memoirs on the computer instead of a typewriter. If they make a mistake, they can go back. It's easier to correct. So what I really want to do is encourage and inspire everyone who wants to create a family or an elder history for themselves and for their families to do it.
Yeah, that's one of the things I've talked to my parents about doing, because I think growing up in Hilo in the 30s and 40s, like my dad did, my mom in Maui, in Kahalui and Punene, was just something that was so fascinating. And just knowing about old Hawaii is one of the reasons why I want to encourage it. Plus, I come from a very large family. We always get together once a year and hear these stories, but I really want to put it down. So with your help, hopefully we can do that. Now, so they can either do it via a tape recorder, DVD camera. And I told you, you had mentioned that you had an uncle or somebody that didn't want to be filmed. And
Yeah, it was actually my father-in-law.
my father-in-law.
And he had a disorder. He couldn't speak in front of groups, and he couldn't be on film, and he cried really easily. So we encouraged him to write his memoirs. And what I encourage people to do with my workshops is to take a look around at all of their family members, find out who has what resources. Because this, I mean, it's like a scavenger hunt looking for the resources. You could have photos of a great-grandparent on a coffee plantation in Hawaii, on the Big Island, or you could, I've got a picture of my, my great-grandfather in his uniform from the Civil War.
Wow.
So you can get all of these pieces of this puzzle and put it together and make an amazing movie out of it too.
Well, I think it's great. And one of the things I want to talk about is Jeanette does workshops around the island. And so give us an idea of what goes on in the workshops, really.
Well, I have a PowerPoint presentation. So we begin by talking about the importance of documenting history, different types of documentation that you can do. And I broadened it a little bit so that I could capture some people who had little kids or grandchildren, and they wanted to just document the first year or the second year, or a couple years of a child's life,
Sure.
Or a wedding, or an event, a trip, a big trip that you went on. So I incorporate those as well and show different types of documentation. So how to use 8mm film, how and where to get it transferred to a DVD.
Right.
And a lot of people have that around.
My dad's got that.
Oh.
It's by my door. I have not yet converted it because I was just didn't know where to go, but also I was waiting for this something. I knew something was going to happen, and so when I found out about what you did, like, we can do it.
You can.
Yeah.
And you have to do it pretty soon. I mean, because film does wear out eventually, and DVDs do as well. But if you have your DVDs reburned about once every 10 years.
Well,
That's
10
what
years,
my
wow.
understanding is.
Time.
Well, by that time, the technology will be completely different.
Right.
And you'll have already transferred your large DVD onto something probably the size of a thumbnail or something.
Right.
I don't know what's coming next.
But I think it's a great idea because, like you said, you want to be able to pass this down. Now, being a gerontologist, you're telling me this, you pass on to 2 generations?
Well, what I have read, and I'm also a member of the Association of Personal Historians, which is a wealth of knowledge.
Wow.
It's a national organization, and they do research on history and documenting family history all the time. But they said that in 2 generations, family stories are lost if they aren't written or documented. And I can see how that could happen. I mean, when you talk to someone about their great-grandparents, they oftentimes don't even know what their names were.
Yeah.
They don't know where they lived. They don't know anything about them. That's only 2 generations.
Well, especially for Hawaii, we've gone through so much from not being a state to becoming a state.
Yeah.
You know, I've seen pictures of the railroad days, and I would have never. You had railroads here. I mean, I'm a baby
Yeah.
boomer, so.
Yeah.
But anyway, how long do these projects take, by the way?
Well, it really depends. It really depends on if the family has all of their resources in one place, or if they have to write, you know, Auntie over on the Big Island to go through her stuff and send it over here, or if you have to have 8mm or 16mm film, you know, transferred to a DVD. So it really depends. It can be really quick, and you can set the video camera up behind you and film, and not add any photos or anything, any music, and then just burn it, which is so much better than not having anything at all.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, it's more fun, and it's a more interesting movie with old family photos and some, you know, video footage from the 1940s or 30s. Or
Well, I had pictures of my parents in Europe. My father happened to be in Germany at the time when I was born in 1960, and we have old pictures of them in Europe.
oh, I bet they're great.
Oh, it's fantastic. It is on, and he has pictures of Vietnam when he was in Vietnam on 8mm tape. But
Yeah.
it's great. Thank you, Jeanette. Now, tell us a little about this next clip we're going to see. It's about a Pearl Harbor survivor.
Yes.
And I saw the video. It's great footage. It's amazing footage.
Well, I was able to, and like I said, every project is different, and your imagination is your only limitation as far as how this can go. So I was able to get some historical footage on Pearl Harbor. I was able to get historical photos, and the fellow gave me some of his personal historical photos as well. So I put this all together. We got to film this on the USS Missouri.
You did?
Yes,
Oh,
I know. We
that.
got special permission to do that. And it was a really, really fun and really exciting project, and what a delightful man to work with.
Okay. Now, this is just one clip of a very unique gentleman and about Pearl Harbor.
All military personnel report back to your bases immediately. When we were approaching, I said, God, look at all those planes in the distance, swooping down in all directions, and smoke, and boom, boom. I said, boy, the Navy's putting on realistic maneuvers. Well, when we got to Pearl Harbor, of course, there were not maneuvers, I'm sure, and the doctors say you probably, all of you probably went into a mild shock. The harbor was a mass of burning oil, ships blowing up, sailors being blown off their ships, parts of ships flying up and landing on other ships. The MP stopped the shuttle and said, get off now, because the Japanese are going to try and blow it up as they were swooping down, the Zeros. So we jumped. Don't let what we went through happen again. Love your country. It may have its faults. And I've traveled all over the world. I've been to Israel, Guatemala, France, England, Germany, Switzerland, all those countries. There's nothing like America, believe me, nothing like America.
Representatives of the major warring powers to conclude a solemn agreement whereby peace may be restored. The issues involving divergent ideals and ideologies have been determined on the battlefields of the world, and hence are not for our discussion or debate. It is my earnest hope, and indeed the hope of all mankind, that from this solemn occasion a better world shall emerge out of the blood and carnage of the past.
Or you could go to the
Try to picture seven. Picture seven of them right along. Just like this.
Trying to visualize where the planes are coming in.
Or you could down on a pier and have that simulator that.
Wow, Jeanette, that was a great video. Now, how can our people learn to do this on their own? Help us with that.
Well, you can learn the same way I did. That's the best way I know how, and that's through Alelo. Alelo offers the most fantastic courses on producing, camera, and editing. There's someone there to mentor you. All you have to do is have the time.
And it's free.
It's close to free, and
to
if
free.
you can request a waiver,
Yeah.
but it's a very, very small fee. That's the best way to learn. Another thing you can do, well, wait, Olelo also has a Halia Aloha, which is elder history in Hawaiian. That's where I learned to do these.
Oh, okay.
Yes, Leah Kahara, who was absolutely an amazing instructor. So she can take you by the hand and teach you everything you need to know about filming and editing elder histories.
And Olelo has all the equipment as well, too.
They have everything.
Yeah.
They've got, I think, 9 satellite offices, stations around the island.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Yeah, so wherever you are, there's one close to you, and you can go in there and work on your projects.
Well, that's the reason why today's Kupuna is here.
That's
anyway,
right.
I'd like to thank Jeanette Sergeant Hamill for being on our show today. Our elders are a great value to our families, our cultures, and our societies. What better way to share those wisdoms, stories, and life lessons to document them for generations to come? If you have any questions for Jeanette, please call her. Now, Jeanette, your phone number
is 779-7413.
Once again?
779-7413.
And you also have a website address.
Yes, you can go to my website. It's www.windwardfilms.com.
And I know from there they can email you as well, right?
Yes, they
Great,
can.
Great. Stay tuned each week as today's Kupuna brings to you valuable information, programs, and services in Hawaii to help our seniors and their families live a better quality of life. So please tell your family and friends about today's Kupuna. And thank you for joining us this evening. I am Percy Ihara, your host. We're here every Wednesday evening at 7 p.m. on Olelo's Channel 52. Aloha and live well.